discussing national and international issues. You're listening to Pelle Neroth Taylor on today's News Talk, TNT.
Welcome back to the Pelle Neroth Taylor Show. Well, we've got Trump in courts in New York, as every American knows. Well, it looks as if it's going to go to the juries making their decision today on this case with Stormy Allen, who's a prostitute or a lady who's he was alleged to have paid off back in 2006, I think. And the question is, the prosecutor, the Democrat-leaning city of New York, tried to big this up by turning it into felony, the alleged payoff, which Trump denies. And the question is whether he's going to be put in jail for this, or whether it's be a hung jury, or whether he'll be acquitted. And there are political ramifications for each of those outcomes. Welcome to the show, Kacee. We've got Kacee Allen, who's a talk show host of the Kacee Allen Show, covering American values, culture, finance, politics, foreign policy, and more. And of course, you're a regular guest with us. You're our man in New York, as it were. Kacee, have you been to the court many times? Can you perhaps describe the atmosphere and the mood in New York about this?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me back, Pelle. And what I can say, I haven't personally been able to visit this, but I have several sources on the inside that have told me that this is exactly what we thought it was in the first place, a political persecution to the deepest level. The deep state of President Trump has literally gone after him. And the latest on the trials, what we know is this is day 2 of the jury deliberations. Wednesday was day 1. All the 12 jurors did end up going home without reaching a verdict. So I think that is a good sign on President Trump's behalf on reaching or being acquitted here, which I think is very likely. And what I think is very important is that this is what I recently discovered is that President Biden actually, it wasn't a conspiracy that he set this up. He, from the very beginning, worked with Alvin Bragg, who was the prosecutor of this case. He actually told Bragg to take the case. Originally, he said he wasn't interested, but it wasn't until he decided to run for district office that Bragg decided to take this case and politically pursue President Trump. After that, Biden also sends a figure by the name of Matthew Colangelo. Matthew Colangelo. He basically is a Biden operative as well. They collided together. But what's interesting here is President Trump has a gag order against Matthew Colangelo, not allowing him to even mention his name during court, when at the same time, Alvin Bragg, Joe Biden, and Colangelo have all basically collided to go against Trump, and he can't even fully say what's happening here.
But the jury's back the second day, and it's noon New York time. Is the jury expecting to pronounce a verdict today, do you think?
Not that I've heard of. I could see this going on at least another week. I mean, it's hit or miss. It's like every single hour we're hearing new news. We're hearing something about, could these jurors come up with something? Could this be a quick process? I do think it is at the end stage. I would have to guess by June we will reach a decision. I mean, there is actually no limitation to this. This could very well last years. There is no set limit how long the deliberation process works. But yeah, I think that the left who are prosecuting him are just grasping at thin air, and they're really desperate. So yeah, I think we're going to see this come to a closure in the next month.
But because it's not even clear what Trump actually did wrong. Okay, so I mean, his lawyer Michael Cohen seems to hate him. He paid him money, and Michael Cohen paid money to Stormy Daniels, and and Trump denies the connection. But even if he did, what's the big deal about that? I mean, why is, because people pay off things all the time which they don't want made public. I mean, why would that be a felony? I just don't understand.
Well, that's the thing. You're exactly right. Why would that be? So they weren't able to get it with just what's her name? I'm sorry, I lost track of the first name, but it was also Karen McDougal that was also involved in this. It wasn't just Stormy Daniels. It wasn't just Stormy Daniels. Karen McDougal was also the second part of this, to try to make it look like President Trump was some vile sexual predator, because they couldn't just get this on Stormy Daniels alone. They had to just throw other figures in here, and they're just desperately reaching at whatever they can. So, I mean, this is, like I said before, this is the most politically persecuted a presidential candidate has been since Abraham Lincoln in the 1860 election.
I mean, it's a paying this woman is basically a campaign finance violation, and they've got to prove that he had the intent to defraud. Well, who is he supposed to have defrauded? I mean, it's his own money, isn't it? I mean, he's paying. Where's the victim in this? Um, who is
Well, that's what I'm
who's being
saying. Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There is no victim here. They just want to say that because there could be a financial scrutiny, then they can use that against him. When at the same time, it doesn't affect the election, it doesn't affect his opponents, and they're just going to try to ride off of this because literally that's all they have. I mean, you even look at what Trump's lawyer Alina Habba has been saying. She went on a Fox show the other day and destroyed this Fox reporter by saying that the Fox reporter claimed that Biden was not involved in this, and it's ridiculous to think that this is a double standard of justice. And immediately, Alina Habba just grilled her and said, "Look, this is ridiculous," and basically explained what I said about how Alvin Bragg and Joe Biden have been colluding this entire time. And that's it's not just that it's just a it's the fact that it's a simple payment. I mean, it's not like President Trump went out here and actually did something violent. This is just something, and it's not even to do with the election. This is just a side type of deal that they want to get him. So it's as simple as that.
I mean, I'm trying to get my head around it, but I was reading up, doing some research, and obviously this guy Edwards, who was a presidential candidate a few years ago, where I'm reading out here, the government alleged that Edwards had received money from two wealthy donors and used it to support his mistress and their child in return for their silence. The government claimed that this constituted a violation of campaign finance awards laws, which limit the amount of money that individuals can contribute to a campaign and require that such contributions be disclosed. Edward maintains that the payments were gifts and not campaign contributions, and therefore not subject to campaign finance laws. A jury acquitted Edwards on one count of violating campaign finance laws and deadlocked on the remaining 5 counts. The government decided ultimately not to retry Edwards. That seems like a stronger case, and yet Edwards was basically acquitted, or Edwards was let go, and because he was using, I mean, you could say there's a violation of campaign finance in the sense that the money came from wealthy donors to buy off his mistress. But this is Trump's own money, so he's not even using other people's money to pay off Stormy Daniels, which is a fact he contests. So Trump is on stronger ground than Edwards ever was, and Edwards was not prosecuted, or I mean, he got off scot-free.
Yeah, so Edwards didn't even have the political backing that President Trump has. I mean, we didn't even see Obama with the rallies that Trump has now. I mean, I think that they are so scared of his support that that's what, they're going to overlook something like that from someone else who didn't have the backing and support that obviously could be guilty of more of a harsh crime than Trump himself. So, yeah, they're going to overlook that, and they're going to go after who has the publicity and the popularity like President Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, the problem is that the double standards, obviously, and the fact that this might open up the route to legal warfare. Every Republican DA with a career on the make might just pick a former president he dislikes, like Obama, and start making cases against them, and that way leads to the disunity of the United States and maybe the end of the republic. I mean, it has to be a common system of law that everyone believes in. I'm just going to quote here. Someone will have to address the case of Hillary Clinton. If you do go against Trump, you really ought to address the case of Hillary Clinton, who maintained an unsecured private email server processing allegedly classified material. She destroyed tens of thousands of emails, potential evidence, as well as physical phones and Blackberries. The Hillary campaign and the DNC did something naughty in paying the Steele dossier as illegal expenses and not campaign expenditures, and got off with only an election commission fine for their bookkeeping error. Right, so they got off at a small fine for that, which is just as bad as anything that Trump did right here. So it shows you the double standards that the Democrats get off scot-free for something that they're trying to get Trump for.
Yeah, that's the best example of the double standard. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was caught bleach fitting 10,000 emails, which is essentially just covering information that she didn't want to be public. She then sends those emails to a pedophile named Anthony Weiner. He's a registered sex offender. It's not a conspiracy. And James Comey, the FBI director, publicly said, this is nothing that we can criminally pursue. This is nothing that we could lock up Hillary for. And he just gave up right then and there. So I think that shows you the double standard and the fact that President Trump is also being persecuted for this documents case in Mar-a-Lago, like you said. And it doesn't go both ways. So, yeah, that was a great example.
I was thinking, I mean, I had a friend who supported Trump living in New York. He said you could fit. I went to the campaign celebrations when he won in 2016, and all the Trump voters in New York could gather in one pub. I mean, he was exaggerating a little bit, but I guess you're a Trump voter in New York. Um, I'm interested to see that Trump seems to be gathering support among blacks in the Bronx, among other groups of people, perhaps because they sympathize with his fighting the system, which they often feel that they've been doing. Do you see a growing support for Trump in New York, or is New York as hostile to Trump as ever?
Well, I think you're always going to have the people that know Trump and have their vendetta against him in the 70s and the 80s, and they're just anti-Trump. But for the most part, the average citizen, if you see people interviewing them on the streets, like the hardworking blue collar people in America, they are very adamant for supporting President Trump, and they hate the policies of Eric Adams, AOC, and all these, or Kathy Hochul, the corrupt New York politicians that are they're just destroying New York, like I've said before, like the poverty, the crime, it just continues to proliferate, and they need someone like President Trump who's going to put an end to that.
Mm. Well, I think we've talked about it before. This is the slow decline of New York under Eric Adams. But remind our viewers who haven't, they didn't watch every episode. How has New York fared under this guy?
Yeah, so Eric Adams was the first person to say, I'm going to offer $10,000 to all newcomers, meaning illegal aliens that come into this country, regardless where they're from. He says, take a bus, we'll pay you to take them here, and we'll give them $10,000 in free shelter, all at the cost of the American taxpayer. So this guy is with open arms, just said, hey, come into our state, we'll take care of you. When at the same time, their crime rates are out of control. The worst part is actually the looting of the stores. Most stores and Macy's have to shut down. Five Guys, like even restaurants, they just cannot withhold the amount of crime, and it's not sustainable to operate a business there. So it's really hit hard for all New Yorkers on this leftist, globalist policy that is just set on destroying our great nation here. I mean, that's what Eric Adams, that's what all these people want. They whether they're getting paid to do this, I'm not really sure, but it's very anti-American. And the left, the Democrats, were never about this before. So I don't really know what changed.
Wait a minute, you're saying Macy's being shut down? Surely not that huge department store is going to be. You don't mean that, do you? I mean, what's happening with Macy's?
Yeah, so there's several Macy's throughout the state and even the country. But yeah, I know there's been specific Macy's and a lot of clothing outlets, because you see videos that there are several people, like masked men, they'll come in as a team and they'll break into the store with guns, and there's like one security guard. So like that's another thing. These stores are so they're struggling with the economy in New York. They can't even afford to pay for security. So like the one security guard is not going to take on 8 burglars. He's just going to let them do what he wants. They're going to take what they want. And the worst part is they don't even get prosecuted. It's literally a misdemeanor to shoplift in New York. It's a misdemeanor to basically do anything besides harm someone physically. That's to the point that they've gotten there. And
Right.
I believe I saw something in Boston the other day. There was a representative that stood up, and I think she wasn't even American. She was elected in Boston, and she said she wants to make it to where you can basically legally sell drugs, you can harm people, you can basically do anything without being prosecuted, as if it's a purge in the northeastern part of the United States. I don't know how this is even possible. I saw Elon Musk even commented on this. He said, this is insane. I mean, it's not even partisan at this point.
Mm. Well, and it's interesting, isn't it? So Trump, they bump up what is at most a misdemeanor, apparently labeling these payments as legal expenses when they may have been to pay off this lady who's going to threaten to embarrass his family. That's bumped up into felony so that they can prosecute it after the years have gone out, after the year. But at the same time, real crimes, they downgrade them. I mean, didn't this guy Bragg famous for reclassifying felonies as misdemeanors? So bumping up a misdemeanor into felony, as they did in the Trump case, shows you that it's political, because he's normally a guy who downgrades real crimes, and now he upgrades a not serious crime.
That's what I mean. It's open hypocrisy, and they're campaigning off of this. And I think the biggest thing you realize here is a lot of the people, the prosecutors that are going after Trump, they campaigned on this. It's like when they were elected, before they got elected, they went off of the idea that I'm going to go after Donald Trump, and that's the only reason they gained the popularity to be in a spot where they're at today. Alvin Bragg, Pelangelo, all these people included, they've bitten the bullet, and
Mm.
it's really sad that I think these people are going to go down in the wrong side of history. I mean, you're going after a former president and a presidential candidate that has the backing like we've never seen. And it's a disgrace to this country. We've really never seen this at this level. And I think the results of this it's going to be a few things. I mean, we could possibly see him be acquitted, and it's going to either way show the corruption of the justice system, how they were wrong, or it's going to be they prosecute him to the fullest extent. And unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. And
do you think you could end up with yes or no? We've got to end there, Kacee. Is there a chance Trump might be given a jail sentence for this?
Yes, there is. I think the chances go down each day that the deliberations proceed. But yeah, I think it's very possible at this point. But like I said, it gets unlikely as each day goes on.
Indeed. And of course, they have to be unanimous for that to happen. And there are 12 jurors, and a lot of people are able to think for themselves, even in the jury. So that's a cause for hope for those who support Trump. But of course, there is a possibility of jail for the leading candidate for the US presidency. This is the Pelle Neroth Daily Show. Kacee Allen with us from New York. See you tomorrow at the same time, 3 o'clock European, UK, 4 o'clock European.